Hi everyone, this is Dan. I know I haven't done a video review in a long time, but I just wanted to make a kind of fun little video here where I go over something that I've been kind of researching for a while, and that's the comic book making process. So in this video, I'm going to go over what is kind of the classic comic book creation process, mainly known as full script. So here you should be seeing the script passing by. I just wrote this real fast. This is a real sort of cheeseball comic that I just kind of threw together and was like, okay, let's just make something really fun real fast. So here you can see this formatting here for the full script is from Greg Pak. And here you see a description for panel 1, and then after that there's some formatting. The panel 1 is just narration of describing what's going on. Caption 1 is for like a narration box, and here we have two characters, Vung and Eddie. They're both speaking two dialogue pieces in the first panel, and you go to the next panel, more speech, so on and so forth. Typically, next to every panel is kind of a description of what's going on in the action that's occurring, and then the text, I should say copy in parentheses is dialogue between the characters. In this case, this can be a lot more complicated and a lot more involved. You can go over and say, oh, do I want sound effects to tell the letter? The main point behind this method right here is to show how full script kind of works. You kind of describe everything, and as the writer, and this is sort of the writer accomplishing this with the editor, you're really dictating the comic, both the design, what's going to happen, the plot, the dialogue. Everything is pretty much run by the writer and the editor in a full script method. So here you're seeing pencils. So this is sort of the first art stage right here, and this is where you work with a pencil and you create the layouts and the essentially the initial art, right? And so what you can see pretty easily from this, and this is kind of a rough scan, obviously, I'm working out the drawing. And again, I'm not putting like crazy effort in this. I kind of just threw this together over a weekend, like, oh, I'm just going to do something fun and kind of mess with it. So here you can see in the first panel, I did do a drawing in perspective. This is 2-point perspective. Some of it's okay. The door in the back doesn't really work, but the rest of it's pretty decent. And you can also see the two characters are kind of lounging. And then the next 4 or 6 panels are kind of more boring straightaway shots, but mainly it's dialogue and kind of going through. First one, you have an overhead shot, as Fung is looking at it, a little bit of gesturing going on. And I'm putting kind of like the initial details of what I kind of want to throw in certain areas when I'm doing the pencils. And kind of the gist of what I'm doing. You can actually see some of my body lines as I go through. Some of this is still kind of stiff and the anatomy's not really there yet. But you kind of work with it, right? Yeah, important thing to note, and you're probably looking at the gun right there. When possible, always draw from reference. So, very good idea to just download photos and just draw from them. I've been like reading so many interviews with artists. And it's always amazing every time I see it. Like, I think the greatest ones were interviews by Neil Adams, where he's just sort of like, yeah, I don't care what art schools tell you. Draw from reference and, even trace if you have to. It's what you need to get the art done. So here we move on to inks. So I've used at this point, I've kind of erased most of the pencils. And the way I work it is I usually do the inks over the pencils, and then I erase afterwards very lightly. And then if any ink didn't really fill in very well, I usually try to fill it in at that point. It's very interesting. You really have to make sure you ink very heavily in physical medium, because when you scan, your scanner is usually a lot more precise than you are, and you end up, even with using levels in Photoshop, you end up not getting very good blacks if you're not careful. So here you can see more of the detailing, some of the shading effects. I didn't go crazy on the shading here. And this, is kind of like me going fast, but you can see some of it, a lot of it in the main panel up there, and then some more details being hashed out. So here we go to color flats, and this is called the flattening process. So here is, we basically insert flat colors everywhere, and we flat out from big to small all of the objects that we want to color in the comic book. It's kind of funny. I kind of enjoy this process, even though it is kind of tedious. And depending on how detailed your drawing is, it gets really, really complicated real fast. Honestly, having colored for a while or attempted to learn coloring, I can totally see why the Japanese just want to do zip-a-tone and halftones. Just like, forget it. This is too much work. So technically, this is what's considered the true coloring stage, and this is where you render more, so there's more different coloring effects going on here. Here you can see I kind of add a layer of color halftones on some of there to give it kind of a grainy, classic look. It didn't work as well as I thought, and I need to just adjust the settings, I think, because it looks a little grainy here. But you can see some of the rendering. The colors are have a little more life to them in certain areas because it kind of flows with the shading. Again, this is kind of cheesy. I'm not a true colorist, so a real colorist is going to do a lot more than this. But again, it's just to show you that, there's the flatting and then there's the actual, quote unquote coloring. Finally, last but not least, this is the lettering. And so I do this in a vector graphics program. It ends up working a little better with the letters. And, honestly, it's just adding text, creating bubbles, shaping the bubbles, and then creating the tails. So pretty straightforward. There is kind of an art to it, and I'm by no means a master of lettering. I think some of these balloons could probably be done better, but not too bad for a little quick job that I did over the weekend. Anyhow, that's the video. Just thought I'd throw something fun out for people to look at. I will definitely have reviews this weekend. Probably be going over Secret Wars number 3 and probably a manga. Yeah, definitely a manga this weekend. Anyhow, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comment on this video, please leave it down below, and I will see you next time.